Hey, welcome back to the Gracefully Growing podcast, where we keep it real about teen life, teen struggles, and teen growth using the Grace framework. Hello, my name is Dr. Chemical Bola, author, speaker, gratitude advocate, and I am mom to my amazing 13 and a half-year old Sunshine. I'm excited that each week you choose to tune in to continue on our journey as we explore the five key principles that will guide you to a fulfilling life. And those five key principles are gratitude, reflection, affirmations, connection, as well as empathy. If this is your first time here, let me catch you up real quick. Each week, we break down how to live with intention and thrive in this wild journey called teen life using the five key principles that I just shared with you. We have a little bit of a celebration. We made it over 2,000 subscribers. So there are over 2,000 of us here that follow this journey. I am super excited. If you've come across this video and you are not subscribed, please make sure you keep that subscribe button, and I'll be glad to have you. To my people who are already here, I want to say a big thank you to you for continuing on this journey with me. All right. Before we get started, I want you to go ahead and grab your journal. If you do not have a journal, grab a notebook. If you do not have a notebook, open the Notes app on your phone so you can take some notes. If you're looking for a journal that you can use, I have written the Affirmation Gratitude Journal that is available on Amazon, and I'll be sure to post the link in the show notes for you. Today's episode, honestly, in my personal opinion, is something that does not get talked about enough. And we're diving into that question today. Why do so many teens struggle with critical thinking? And no, I'm not saying that teens are not smart. I would never say that. But let's be clear right now, teens are smart, creative, observant, innovative, funny, and full of potential. But being smart and using critical thinking are not always the same thing. Because you can be incredibly talented and still make rushed decisions. You can be book smart and still fall for bad advice. Ask me how I know these things. You can get good grades and still panic when life throws you a situation that does not come from multiple choice answers. And let me tell you, I'm speaking from over 20 plus years of experience as an educator and the last 13 plus years as a parent. Here's the thing I know. Critical thinking is not just about intelligence. It's about learning how to pause, analyze, question, compare, and make thoughtful decisions instead of reacting off of emotion, pressure, fear, and whatever TikTok said 5 minutes ago. Let's be honest. Sometimes the internet has people acting real confident and real wrong at the very same time. So somebody will post, if it takes longer than 7 minutes to text back, cut him off immediately. And suddenly people are in FBI mode, deleting contacts, making breakup playlists, and writing captions like, I choose peace. Meanwhile, the poor, the poor boy was in the shower. See, that right there is why we need critical thinking. So today, I'm going to break it down. We are going to break it down. What critical thinking actually is, why it can be hard for teenagers, what gets in the way of critical thinking, how to strengthen it. And then I'm going to also talk about how adults can help teenagers with their critical thinking. And then we're going to use the GRACE framework to make better choices in school, in relationships, online spaces, and everyday life. And of course, you know, I always leave you with a GRACE challenge for the week. So I want you to get comfortable. This one is going to be a lengthy one. Take a deep breath. Let's get into it. We will begin with defining what critical thinking really is. In simple terms, critical thinking is the ability for you to stop, think, question, and evaluate before you believe something, say something, or do something. So, critical thinking involves you asking, is this true? Does this make sense? What evidence do I have? Am I missing something? Or what am I missing? Is this a fact, an opinion, or just somebody being loud online? And what could happen if I act on this? Critical thinking also helps you to solve problems, make decisions, understand consequences, avoid manipulation, handle pressure, and think for yourself instead of just copying the crowd or following the crowd. Critical thinking is the difference between I saw one post, so now I believe it, and I saw one post, but let me slow down, check the facts, and think this through. It is also the difference between everybody's doing it, so I should do it too. And does this actually make sense for me? It is the difference between I'm upset, so I'm going to react, and I'm upset, so I need a minute before I make this worse. Hear me when I say this. Critical thinking is not about overthinking every little thing. It's not about being suspicious of everything. It is not about trying to sound smarter than everyone else. It's about learning how to make wise choices with your brain fully awake. And that matters because life keeps throwing situations at you that are not easy. You have to think critically when a friend tells you drama from their side only. Let me pause here. The amount of fights that have occurred in school buildings because person A told person B that he or she heard that person C wants to fight. If I had a penny for every single time I had to deal with that foolishness as an administrator, y'all, I will have a lot of money. You need to critically think when a rumor starts spreading. When a teacher gives you feedback that you don't like, let me pause on that one too. Because oftentimes, when we receive feedback that we don't like from a teacher, it turns into the teacher doesn't like me. And now I need to change my whole schedule. You need to critically think when someone pressures you to do something risky, or social media makes you feel like everyone else is ahead, or you are trying to decide what kind of person you want to be. Critical thinking is one of the biggest life skills you can build because it protects your peace, your goals, your relationships, and of course, your future. Now we're going to move on to why most teens struggle with critical thinking. That's the real issue. But why is it so hard though? Why do so many teens struggle to think critically, even when they're capable of doing it? There are lots of reasons. And honestly, most of them will make perfect sense once I go through them. Reason number one, the teenage brain is still developing. I'm going to start here because it's important. Remember, teenagers, your brain is still under construction. The part of your brain that helps with planning, judgment, decision making, impulse control, and long term thinking, that is called your prefrontal cortex, is still developing during your teen years. So, what this means is that sometimes your emotions can get loud before your logic even thinks about coming into the room. So, when something embarrassing happens, or stressful, or exciting, or dramatic, your first instinct might be to react quickly instead of thinking carefully. Now, this doesn't mean that you are incapable of doing it. It means you're still learning how to pause long enough to let your wiser thoughts catch up. Basically, sometimes your brain is like, shouldn't we calmly think through this? And your emotions are like, I know, let's cry, text, overreact, post on social media, and maybe slam a door or two for cinematic effect. That's real. Reason number two, why teens struggle with critical thinking. Teens deal with a lot of pressure from everywhere: the school, the grades, the parents, the sports, friendships, social media, relationship, appearances, your future plans, fitting in, standing out, not falling, not being judged, not being left out. Phew, that's a list. And when pressure is high, people often go into survival mode. And survival mode does not usually sound like, yeah, let me think carefully, examine the options, and weigh the evidence. No, 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 no. It sounds like, I don't know, just do something. And the thing about stress is that it makes it harder to slow down and think clearly. And when you feel overwhelmed, your brain wants relief fast. And fast decisions are not always wise decisions. I actually did a whole episode on overwhelm and teenagers. So make sure you catch that episode. Reason number three why critical thinking, or why teens struggle with critical thinking, is this: social media trains quick reactions, not deep thought. This one is big because of the age that we're in, and everybody is on social media. A lot of online content encourages instant judgment, instant gratification, quick takes, fast opinions, short attention spans, surface level information, viral outrage, emotional reactions, following trends without context. Y'all, the number of times I've come across videos of young people doing some foolishness over a social media trend. And then remember that social media rewards confidence over accuracy, speed over wisdom, because you're scrolling fast, you're reacting fast, you decide fast, you compare fast, you assume fast. And after a while, your brain gets used to not going deeper and start accepting snippets instead of substance. And let me tell you something: just because somebody said it with a ring light confidence does not mean it is correct. A person can have clear skin, nice lighting, and perfect outfit and still be spreading absolutely nonsense and false information. Number four reason why teens struggle with critical thinking. Some teens are simply not taught how to think. They were just taught how to memorize. A lot of our students are used to being rewarded for getting the right answer, following directions, memorizing information, passing tests, and staying on task. But critical thinking asks for more than memorizing. Critical thinking asks you to explain why. Critical thinking asks you to compare ideas. It asks you to question assumptions. It asks you to solve a new problem without being handed every step. It asks you to defend your reasoning. And students struggle with this because nobody really broke down the process for them. They were told to think harder, but not shown how to think harder. Some students, not all. So this is not a castigation against our educators. And when you tell a student to think harder and don't show them how to think harder, it's like telling somebody to cook a whole meal without teaching them how to use the stove. Number 5 reason why our students struggle with critical thinking. The fear of being wrong makes teens avoid thinking out loud. A lot of teens do not want to say the wrong thing, ask the wrong question, or look confused. So instead of exploring ideas, they stay quiet. Instead of questioning, they guess. Instead of analyzing, they copy what sounds right. And I get it. No one wants to be in class giving an answer with full confidence, only for the room to go silent and somebody in the back to whisper, "Oh, wow." But being wrong is not proof that you're dumb. It's often proof that you're learning. Critical thinking grows when you're willing to be curious, not perfect. Number 6 reason why teens struggle with critical thinking. Emotions can cloud judgment. Let's be real. Sometimes the problem is not that you do not know better. It is that your feelings are so strong in the moment that you cannot access what you know. Think about this for a minute. When you are hurt, angry, jealous, embarrassed, anxious, or excited, it becomes harder to think calmly. For example, you assume your friend hates you because they were quiet in class today, or you think one bad grade means you're a failure, or you believe everybody is judging you because of one awkward moment, or you make a risky choice because you want approval, or you send a paragraph text when you should have just sent absolutely nothing. Critical thinking requires a pause. Emotions hate pauses. Number 7 reason why teens struggle with critical thinking. Teens are still building their identity. A lot of teen years are spent figuring out, who am I? What do I believe? What matters to me? Who do I want to become? Do I actually like this, or do I just want people to like me? And when identity is still forming, it is easy to let outside voices become too loud. You may believe something because your friends believe it. Your favorite influencer said it. Your crush thinks it's cool. Your family expects it, or you're scared of standing alone. Critical thinking means learning to separate what is true for me from what am I absorbing from everybody else. And that takes maturity, practice, and courage. Now let's talk about what happens when your critical thinking is weak. So we've talked about why you struggle. Now let's talk about what happens when your critical thinking is weak. This part matters. This part there. Is your teen overwhelmed, unmotivated, or constantly reacting emotionally? It seems like everything is one huge drama to them. They're smart, they're capable, but something is getting in the way. Stress, self doubt, distractions, or emotional overwhelm. It's not a discipline problem, it's an emotional skill gap. Living with Grace teaches teens how to regulate their emotions, build confidence, communicate effectively, and develop real discipline using a proven framework built for today's world. Hi, I am Dr. Kemi Popola, educator and mindset coach with over 20 years of experience in education in helping students succeed in school and in life. When I was an assistant principal, I detested suspending children because they had gotten into some type of altercation that is as a result of a lack of emotional intelligence or emotional resilience. That is why I Living with Grace mindset course for teenagers. So, if everything I said just now, speaking directly to you about your teenager, I want you to click below to enroll your teen today and give them tools they'll use for life. I cannot wait to see you inside the course. The struggle is not just academic. Weak critical thinking can affect almost every part of life: school, friendship, online, your future. In school, it shows up like you rushing through your assignments, picking answers without reading carefully, struggling to explain your thinking, giving up quickly when a problem is unfamiliar, and depending too much on others for answers. In your friendships, it shows up like you believing rumors too quickly, assuming the worst, taking everything personally, following group behavior without thinking, and reacting before asking questions. In your relationships, your weak critical thinking shows up like you ignoring red flags, confusing attention with respect, mistaking manipulation for love, and making emotional decisions without thinking through consequences. Online, your weak critical thinking or lack of critical thinking will show up as you falling for misinformation, comparing your real life to edited content, adopting opinions you have not examined, reposting things you do not understand, or mistaking popularity for truth. In your future, your weak critical thinking may show up as you making choices based on pressure, struggling to solve real world problems, having trouble advocating for yourself, or keep repeating patterns because you never stop to evaluate them. This is why critical thinking is just not a school skill. It is just not an academic skill. It is a life protection skill because it helps you to protect your mind from manipulation, your emotions from unnecessary chaos, and your future from reckless decisions. Now that we've talked about what happens when your critical thinking skills are weak, let's talk about how we get better at critical thinking. I told you this was going to be a long episode. This is the good news. Critical thinking is a skill, and skills can be taught and skills can be strengthened. You do not have to be born with it. You build it with practice. Here are 7 practical ways you can strengthen and build your critical thinking skills. Number 1, slow down your first reaction. What do I mean by this? Your first reaction is not always your best reaction. When something happens, here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask, what do I know for sure? What am I assuming? What else could be true? And do I need more information before I respond? That pause while you're asking them 4 questions can save you from so much mess and so much foolishness. Because let's be honest, a lot of drama would never become drama if people paused for 2 minutes, drank some water before responding. I often would tell my students, pause, count to 10 before you respond. I did a whole episode on responding and not reacting. Number 2, way for you to get better at critical thinking. Ask better questions. Critical thinkers should ask questions like, where did this information come from? Is this a fact or an opinion? What evidence supports this? What is another perspective? What are the consequences of this choice? Am I reacting emotionally or thinking clearly? The quality of your life often improves when the quality of your questions improves. Let me say that again. The quality of your life often improves when the quality of your question improves. Number three, stop confusing confidence with correctness. Listen, when I tell you, some people say wrong things very confidently. A loud opinion is still just an opinion. So I want you to learn to ask these questions. Is this actually true? Can this be verified? Does this make sense? Is there context that I am missing? Just because somebody says something boldly and loudly does not mean you should build your life around it. Number four, on how you get better at critical thinking. Read and listen carefully. A lot of mistakes happen because people skim. They read half the information, or they read half the question, or they read half the directions, hear half the story, watch half of the clip, then form a whole full opinion. Critical thinking means slowing down long enough to understand what is actually being said and reading in between the lines too. Read the full question, listen to the whole conversation, pay attention to details. Context matters. Number five way that teens can get better at critical thinking. Learn to sit with discomfort. Sometimes the truth is inconvenient. Sometimes growth requires changing your mind. Sometimes your friend is not fully right. Sometimes you are not fully right. Sometimes both people played a role. This is why accountability and self reflection is important. Sometimes the answer is not simple. Critical thinking requires emotional maturity because not everything fits neatly into good and bad, right and wrong, winner and loser. Some situations are messy, and mature thinking can handle nuance. Number six, practice solving real life scenarios. Ask yourself, if my friends stop talking to me, what are three possible reasons besides they hate me? If I fail one test, what is the smartest next move? This is called failing forward. If someone pressures me to fit in, what are the possible outcomes of saying yes versus saying no? If a video makes a big claim, what should I check before I believe it? It goes in my mind, y'all. How many people repost wrong information without fact checking? Google is free. The internet is free. But anyway, I digress. Practicing thought processes helps to train your brain to move beyond automatic reactions. Number seven, reflect after mistakes instead of just feeling bad. This one is big. Reflection is big for me. Taking accountability is big for me. It's big. It's big. One of the fastest way for people to grow is to ask themselves, what happened? What was I thinking at the time? What did I miss? What will I do differently next time? This is one of the ways in which I coached students when I was a teacher and later administrator, especially in my work as an administrator. I always ask them, so tell me what happened. So, what were you thinking at that time? Hmm. Do you think there must have been something that you missed? Like, did you miss something? Maybe there was some piece of the information that you didn't have. And then I coach them. So let's talk about what you're going to do next time to avoid you coming in my office and sitting down and awaiting a punishment. When you pause and you ask yourself those questions that I just talked about, that is how mistakes become wisdom. Embarrassment alone does not make you wiser. Know that. Reflection does. Now, let's talk about how we fit everything into the GRACE framework and how the GRACE framework can help you build critical thinking. Because this is where everything finally all comes together. Know this, critical thinking is not just intellectual, it's emotional too. You think better when you are grounded. You make better decisions when you are centered. You respond better when you are not running on panic, insecurity, or pressure. So let's walk now through each part of the GRACE framework. And I'm going to show you how they help teens strengthen critical thinking, starting with gratitude. At first, gratitude and critical thinking may seem like they are unrelated, but they're deeply connected to one another. Where gratitude helps you to calm your mind and shift you out of panic mode. Because when you're stressed, frustrated, or overwhelmed, your thinking becomes narrow. You start reacting from fear. Gratitude helps to widen your perspective. It reminds you that not everything is going wrong. It also reminds you that this moment is not the whole story. It reminds you that you still have resources, that you still have support, and you still have options. For teens, gratitude creates emotional steadiness, and emotional steadiness helps you to think more clearly. You see the connection? When you are feeling grateful, you are less likely to spiral, assume the worst, or make reckless choices out of frustration. So instead of saying, my whole life is ruined because I failed this test, gratitude helps you to say, yeah, the test was rough, but it is one moment. I still have time to recover, learn, and improve. That shift matters. So, in a moment where you failed a test, the scenario that I just gave to you, try saying, I'm grateful this situation can teach me something. I am grateful one mistake does not define me. I am grateful I still have choices. Gratitude does not ignore problems. It gives you enough peace to think through them, to critically think through them. Let's talk about reflection. And we're going to stay here for a moment because reflection is one of the strongest grace tools for critical thinking. Reflection is your ability to slow down and examine your thoughts, your choices, your patterns, and reactions. Without reflection, you repeat. With reflection, you grow. A lot of teens are moving fast. School, phone, group chats, sport, homework, stress, family expectations, social drama. Some of you work. Then exhaustion from all of that. And when life gets that busy, it is easy for you to live on autopilot. Reflection interrupts that autopilot because it helps you to ask, why did I react that way? What was I feeling? Was that thought actually true? Did I have enough information? What could I have done differently? Reflection teaches you to notice your assumptions, examine your choices, learn from your mistakes, and separate feelings from facts. Let's say, for example, your friend walks past you at school and does not speak to you. Your brain says, he's mad at me, she's mad at me, I knew it, I did something wrong. Or even your brain might tell you, I don't know what they got going on, but it ain't got nothing to do with me. Here's what reflection says. Did I actually confirm that they saw me? Could there be a different reason why they walked by me and didn't speak? Am I interpreting that silence as rejection? Should I ask instead of assume? You see how reflection slows down the emotional story? Here are some questions I want you to reflect on right now. What story am I telling myself right now? Is there proof? What are other possible explanations? Am I reacting to fear or am I reacting to facts? What lesson can I take from this? The lesson is very important. Once you're able to do this, you're going to find that reflection is truly where your maturity begins. Moving on to affirmations. Affirmations help to maintain and strengthen your internal voice that says, I can think clearly. I do not have to panic. I can ask questions. I can learn. I do not need to know everything immediately. A lot of teens struggle with critical thinking because they're intimidated by uncertainty. They start to think, what if I sound dumb? What if I ask the wrong question? What if I am wrong? What if somebody else gets it and I do not? And when fear of looking foolish takes over, thinking shuts down. Affirmation helps to interrupt that fear. It's like stops the train. Affirmations remind teens that they can pause before they react. They are capable of solving problems. They do not need to rush to prove themselves. That asking questions is a strength. Being wrong is part of learning. So let's say you're in class and you don't understand the assignment. Instead of asking, you copy what others are doing because you do not want to seem confused. But what affirmation helps you to do in that moment is it reframes your thought. And instead of you sitting down there in silence, you then get to tell yourself, I can ask questions. Mhm. Because I am allowed to ask questions. You can tell yourself, asking for clarification is smart, not embarrassing. And you can tell yourself, my growth matters more than pretending. And that confidence helps you to create better thinking. I'm going to give you some affirmations for critical thinking. I can slow down and think carefully. I do not have to react to everything immediately. I am capable of making wise decisions. I can ask questions without feeling ashamed. I trust myself to learn and grow. Here's my favorite one. I do not have to follow the crowd to feel secure. Know this, affirmations are not magic words, they are mental training. They help to replace panic language with grounded language. And to take it up a notch, if you write these down on a piece of paper or in your notebook and you repeat them to yourself consistently every day, your critical thinking will improve. Now let's move on to connection. Critical thinking grows in healthy connection. Why? Because wise thinking often develops through conversation, feedback, perspective, and support. When teens isolate or only listen to people who think exactly like them, their thinking can become shallow or one sided. Connection helps expand perspective. Let's talk about how connection help critical thinking. The connection gives you people to talk things through with, adults who can help you see what you missed, peers who challenge your assumptions, safe spaces to ask questions and explore ideas. Not every thought needs to stay trapped in your head. Sometimes you think better by talking it out. I talk about my son sometimes. This is part of his critical thinking process. When he's struggling with something, he will come to me and he will say, Mom, here's what I'm thinking. Let's talk through it. And this helps. That's his connection. I'm part of his connection, right? So let's say, for example, You're upset because a teacher corrected you, and instantly you decide, yeah, that teacher hates me. Then you talk to someone else, maybe a parent, a coach, counselor, your older sibling, your auntie, uncle, trusted friend, and they help you to reframe it. Could it be that your teacher was just trying to help you improve? Has this teacher always supported you, or has this teacher supported you before? Did they correct the work or rejected you as a person? Two different things, right? Now, suddenly you're seeing more than one angle of this situation. That is the power of your connection. Now, it is important to note this: not all connections are healthy. If your circle encourages you to overreact, be petty, group think, spread rumors, make reckless decisions, then those connections can weaken your critical thinking. I've often had students brought to my office because they got into an altercation and now they're in trouble. And then you ask them, what happened? Well, so and so told me to do it. I'm sorry, what? And so I always ask them, did they tell you to do it because it was a smart thing to do? Or because they wanted entertainment? Because here's the thing: some people will get you to overreacting, being petty, spreading rumors, and making these reckless decisions because they want entertainment. They know that your overreaction is entertainment for them. Remember this: some people are not your advisors, they are audience members. They want you to entertain them. Let me tell you what healthy connections sound like. It sounds like someone saying, let's think this through. It sounds like someone saying or asking, what actually happened? It sounds like somebody asking, what are your options? It sounds like somebody asking you, what outcome do you want? It sounds like someone asking you, have you considered another perspective? So I encourage you today: build relationships with people who help you think better, not just react louder. Let's move on to empathy. Empathy is a powerful critical thinking skill because it teaches you to consider perspectives beyond your own. I want you to hear me when I say this. A lot of poor decisions come from narrow thinking, saying stuff to yourself like, this is how I feel, so this must be the whole truth. Or this is what I meant, and they should know that. Or this affected me, so my view is the only one that matters. Empathy stretches your thinking because it then forces you, or it helps you to ask, what might they be feeling? What else could be happening that I do not see? How would I want to be understood in this moment? Am I being fair? Empathy helps critical thinking because it helps teens to avoid jumping to conclusions. It helps teens to communicate better. It helps teens to handle conflict with maturity. It helps teens to make more balanced decisions. For example, if you and your friend have plans to meet on Saturday or something, and your friend cancels last minute, without empathy, you may think they don't care. They don't care how you feel. But with empathy, you can ask, could they be overwhelmed? Did something happen at home? Are they struggling in a way that I do not know about? Now, hear me. That does not mean that you ignore your feelings. It just means you are not making your first impression the final truth. I want to talk about empathy in conflict. When you use empathy, you stop seeing every disagreement as a battle for you to win, and you start asking, what is this person trying to communicate? What is the real issue here? How can I respond without making this worse? And empathy makes room for thoughtful responses instead of defensive reactions. And that right there is critical thinking with emotional intelligence. We're going to go on to how adults can support teens with critical thinking. So, adults in the room, please listen. This part is helpful for parents, educators, mentors, and anyone who works with teens. If you want teens to think critically, don't just tell them to think harder. I want you to help them by asking the following questions. What makes you say that? What evidence do you have? What are other possibilities? What might happen next? How do you know that's true? What would be another way to look at it? Also, please, please, please create environments where teens can ask questions safely, make mistakes without shame, explain their thinking, and practice problem solving without feeling judged. Do you want to know how fast a teen will shut down on you when they feel mocked, rushed, or dismissed? But teens will grow when they feel safe enough to think out loud. In closing, my lovely teens, if you have ever made a bad decision, overreacted, believed the wrong thing, followed the crowd, ignored red flags, or handled something immaturely, you are not alone. You are not broken. You are learning. Critical thinking is not about never messing up. It is about growing your ability to pause, process, and choose better over time. You are not supposed to know everything already. You are supposed to grow. And growth often looks like this: noticing your patterns, asking better questions, accepting correction, calming your emotions, learning from mistakes, and becoming more thoughtful little by little. That is maturity. That is wisdom. That is growth. Let's talk about your challenge for this week. The next time someone upsets you, confuses you, pressures you, or makes you want to react fast, do this. Gratitude. Pause and name one thing you're grateful for in that moment. That helps you calm your mind. Reflection. Reflection. Ask, what do I know for sure? What am I assuming? Affirmation. Tell yourself, I do not have to react right now. I can think clearly before I choose. Connection. Talk to a trusted person if you need perspective. Empathy. Ask, what else might be true? How can I respond in a mature and fair way? That is your challenge. I want you to try the grace pause before your next big reaction, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not say more, not post more, not panic more. It is to think better. I want to thank you for hanging out with me on this long episode. And I want you to remember this: being smart is great, but learning to think clearly, question wisely, and respond with maturity, that is what helps you thrive in real life. Thank you for hanging out with me on the Gracefully Growing podcast. Until next time, keep growing, stay graceful, keep thinking, keep choosing wisdom over pressure, and keep living with grace. Remember, you got this, and I'm cheering you on. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Gracefully Growing. Thank you so much for tuning in and growing with me. Remember, living with grace means showing gratitude, taking the time for reflection, speaking powerful affirmations, building strong connections, and practicing daily empathy with yourself and others. If today's episode gave you something to think about, inspired you, or made you smile, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also download today's free resource in the show notes and join our gracefully growing community on social media for more tools, encouragement, and real talk. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, keep growing, and most of all, keep living with grace. I am Dr. Kemi. See you next week.